Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. Good to be with you. I'm Don Hudson. For months now, we have been telling you about problems facing Tennessee's Department of Children's Services. Because of staffing shortages, some kids have been forced to sleep in the agency's offices. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the agency's struggles. State Capitol Newsroom reporter Chris O'Brien has been looking at the impact on foster families and to a nonprofit that aims to ease the burden on the system.
State leaders have been blunt about children's services in Tennessee.
It's near collapse. There's no space.
I've got a traumatized workforce and a traumatized group of kids.
You can't meet those child's needs.
Throw money at it.
And now the head of Tennessee DCS is asking for more money from the governor, partly because more kids are coming into state custody at a time when they lack the proper resources.
Medically fragile children and children with unique needs are increasing in number and incredibly hard to place.
According to DCS, they had more than 8,400 kids in foster care last month, more than they had in the past 2 years at the same time.
It's just numbers that we never saw coming.
Rhonda Polson is the founder of Isaiah 117 House. They work with DCS and give children a place to be right after being removed from their homes while they're waiting to be placed in foster care. She says between COVID and leaving their parents, these kids are dealing with more trauma than she's seen before.
The only reason that children are removed from their home is because there is imminent chance of serious harm or death. And you have children entering our system that need help, serious mental health issues.
She says there is a shortage of foster parents, and many foster parents aren't equipped or trained to deal with these tough cases.
And we have a real crisis on our hands.
She adds caseworkers need better compensation to slow turnover. That's nearing 50% in the first year.
Too many hours, too many cases. And so they're dropping off, and they're good. They're so good at their job. Well, then we have these voids.
Voids, she says, are being filled with young, new caseworkers starting their careers at an unprecedented time in this field.
There's just not enough people. The process is inefficient, and people are getting stuck.
Carson Yates and his wife have been trying to become foster parents for some time, since November 2021 to be exact.
It's been heartbreaking that there are, we have empty beds in our house that foster kids who are currently sleeping in the office could be at.
He says it feels like the burden is on the parents to move themselves along in the process. For example, in March 2022, Carson says they were told their initial foster application had been lost. 2 months later, 3 fingerprinting appointments over 2 more months because they say their initial 2 had never been scheduled.
It's really heartbreaking that many parents like us get stuck in the process, and we know of several that have been so discouraged they dropped out.
Carson wanted to be very clear. They don't blame the department itself.
I don't want to put this on the DCS workers because the people we've interacted with, they've really been amazing and really heroes for working in such a difficult system for very little reward.
But it's very clear there is a need for more DCS funding, something Governor Bill Lee acknowledged himself.
Workforce challenges in DCS are not unique to Tennessee, but they are a Tennessee problem, and we have to address them.
Democrats have urged Lee to fix the problem immediately, rather than wait for the funding to kick in when the new fiscal year starts in July. Reporters asked Lee if he intended on taking some sort of action before the new year.
We're working on it right now. We're working on how to fix this problem every day.
It creates a long journey, though Carson and his wife will tell you it was still worth every step.
We're excited, we're relieved, we're so excited to accept our first placement, which may come as soon as this week.
In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Now, the DCS commissioner reported last month that nearly half of the case managers quit in the first year. The starting pay for some DCS jobs is as low as $27,000 per year. All right, Chattanooga Democrat Yusuf Hakim has filed the first bill to scale back Tennessee's abortion ban. The bill adds exceptions for rape and incest. The law right now allows doctors to be charged no matter the circumstances and forces them basically to prove in court that a mother's life was in danger. Some Republicans, including State Senator Richard Briggs, have said that they're open to changing the law, but they haven't filed any bills. All right, we're going to be talking to our panel of pundits coming up next. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WATE 6 on your side. And welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We are now joined by our political pundits, Courtney Piper, our political contributor, George Corder, our political analyst, and Craig Griffith, our healthcare analyst. And I want to begin by talking about the issues with the Tennessee Department of Child Services. And Craig, maybe with your background, we can start there. I mean, In a nutshell, it is a mess, and it's a sad state of affairs because it involves so many children.
Well, indeed, it is a mess, but it's been a mess for decades. Governor Haslam in 2011 hired an East Tennessee lawmaker, Jim Hendry, to go into DCS and try to improve conditions there. And obviously, it didn't work very well because we're at the place where we are now. But I think Governor Haslam, Governor Lee has to do something about this because he just concluded his campaign for governor by being the family governor, protecting children and families in the state. So I think that he needs to come up with some solutions to this problem, which is going to cost big money. And, you know, the state has enough money to give out, you know, $1 billion to Ford and $500 million to the NFL team in Nashville. So I think they can afford it. They just have to have the will to do it.
I know that when you talk about the money, I think DCS is asking for $150 million for this year's budget. Last year's was 73, but they have all kinds of issues just paying people. I looked it up, and basically the people who are starting are making $27,000, give or take. If you worked in fast food making $15 an hour, you'd make about $30,000. So there is obviously a money issue, but it's much more than that. Courtney, do you want to weigh in?
The governor needs to fix this, and he needs to fix this fast. The only thing that's more horrendous than the problem at DCS is the fact that our governor and our state legislature seem to be content to waiting until July to fix this, not calling a special session, not adding additional funds and oversight into that budget to make sure that those funds actually address the problem now. To Craig's point, Governor Lee campaigned on being the family governor. He has said again and again that he is pro-life. And I think this is the problem that a lot of people have with the pro-life movement, is that they seem to be pro-life when there is an unborn child. But when it comes to actually taking care of children, there just doesn't seem to be the same sense of urgency.
George?
Well, I think that was an unfair characterization of the governor. I mean, the fact that you've got a bureaucratic mess that's existed for a great long time isn't indicative of somebody who is interested in having unborn babies not killed. So I think that's a political stretch there. The reality is you've got a bureaucracy that is probably too small for what it's needing to do. And it is encumbered in a way with regulations and rules upon the regulations that explain the rules that you have to follow to meet the regulations, because you're dealing with children and you're dealing with the safety of children. So there's all of these lengthy, detailed, careful steps you go through. Why? Because you want to protect the children, number one. And number two, nobody in those positions wants to be the one being pointed at and being told, you're the one that let this happen because you didn't do enough due diligence on these people. So
Except that's not what's happening.
There's a great deal of that going on. But at the same time, when you're losing stuff constantly, when people are trying to do the right thing the right way, and then they're told, well, no, you need to send this again. No, we can't find it now. Well, you got to go. I was in the Army for almost 6 years. I'm familiar with that, and it's frustrating, and it's unacceptable. It's understandable, but that doesn't mean it's unacceptable. That doesn't mean it's acceptable.
And go ahead, Courtney. You were.
Yeah, what we know is happening at DCS is caseworkers are overworked. They don't have the funds to place children where they need to go, so they are in office buildings. They are staying in hospitals, and that is completely and totally unacceptable. There's almost 500 open positions at DCS right now. There's not enough people to handle the volume. And, you know, while we're at it, why is there this level of volume? That is an issue that should be looked at as well. If we're going to, especially if we're going to have a governor that's going to campaign on families.
And going back to George's point, the DCS foster applications, in some cases, are taking more than a year. And in some cases, as George kind of alluded to, they've lost paperwork, and so they've had to start over. And as I think all of us would agree, no one wants to put a kid into an unsafe position, and so you do have to do your due diligence.
There's a difference between going through the steps and doing your due diligence and losing applications and having the family that wants to become the foster parent saying, okay, you lost it, here it is again. You lost it again. When can I expect to hear back from you? And then just months and months go by without them getting a response. There's a difference between following steps and being completely and totally inefficient.
Will the money solve, maybe it won't solve all the problems, but will more money, doubling the budget, will it solve more of the problems by attracting people who want to come in and do that?
Well, that's a way any governmental organization, any bureaucracy kind of says, look, we're doing something. We're making change. We're spending more money. And then you find out a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later, maybe some of the problem was addressed, but a lot of the problem still remains, because sometimes it's the structural means or makeup by which you have to pursue these things that causes some of the delay and backlog and headaches and heartaches. But in terms of just simply being able to run the paperwork from this desk to this desk to that desk, that's something that ought to be able to happen without a great deal of hand-wringing and extraordinary amounts of new money coming into the system.
I don't think all the money in the world is gonna solve the problem, because the problem really is the issues are related to families. And a lot of it has to do with the drug epidemic that we're going through, that's putting more and more children at risk in the family unit. So until you do things to support families, which is very difficult to pinpoint because they're so much different, but until you do things to support the families, you're going to continue to have more and more people going into the foster care system.
Governor Lee did not create this problem at DCS, but it is unraveling on his watch, and he has a responsibility to fix it and fix it now with a sense of urgency.
All right, well, let's let that be the last word on this, but I want to move into another big topic, of course, in Tennessee is abortion law. I believe that Representative Yusuf Hakeem filed or is filing his bill that he wants to see some changes, just so everyone is on board with that. Basically, he'd be filing that to add rape and incest as exceptions, and also change the language. It doesn't make a doctor basically have to defend himself or herself, instead allowing the district attorney to decide if they're going to prosecute that affirmative defense clause. Do you see some Republicans or enough Republicans getting on board to make any changes, or are we going to just go when the session begins, it's going to come out the same way it is right now?
Well, it'll be the main topic of discussion because abortion is always the main topic of discussion over any other issue, short of war when you're in the middle of it. And the issue here, you may recall, I'm not sure if you were here yet, Tom, but some months ago we discussed this issue, and I said, here's what I think has happened. I think that the Republicans have passed a bill, and none of them thought it would ever be, not none of them, but some of them thought it would never become law, because at that point, the Supreme Court hadn't overturned and returned to the states the issue of abortion. And what I said at the time was, what's going to happen is there's going to be a look at this, and there's going to be adjustments made on the bill now that it in fact has taken effect based on the Supreme Court's action. And that's exactly what's happening. Senator Richard Briggs said the same thing. He said just a few weeks ago that, some of us didn't think this was going to pass. I mean, that it was going to come into effect, but it did. And now they're making the changes.
I don't think there's hardly any chance that there'll be a change to the law. They may introduce some bills that look to change it, but I've seen no movement either from the governor or the leadership of the House or the Senate that any willingness to change the law now. I don't think they want to open it up for any sort of examination until the court forces them to.
The vast majority of Tennesseans not only want these changes, but there is a preference among Tennesseans, a majority of Tennesseans, for there not to be these kinds of restrictions on abortion in the state of Tennessee. So if politicians are looking to their constituents, if they are looking to voting blocs like women and suburban women and college educated suburban women, they will do something about this law. And again, there may have been a point when the state legislature did pass this law and people thought it would never become law, but now it is. And there should be a sense of urgency to address these unintended consequences because women's lives are on the line. If you have never been pregnant, if you have never experienced a complicated or high-risk pregnancy, you don't know what these things are like and what these choices are like and what these situations are like. I don't want Dr. Briggs, I don't want anybody else in the state legislature getting between me and my doctor to make a decision about what's going to save my life and preserve my chances of having a family in the future.
Well, we will find out when the general legislative session gets underway at the beginning of January. Right now, though, we're going to take a break. Right back. Welcome back. For lack of a better term, people have been calling it the golf cart gate, so to speak, involving the mayor, leadership at Parks and Recs. It looked like there was an agreement and this thing was settled, but boy, there's been a big dust up since it was, settled, so to speak. Are we going to continue to hear about this or is it over? George?
I don't know.
Well, anybody can pretty much sue anybody for anything in the United States. And it'll subside here because it's not like Mayor Jacobs threw bags of money in his car and drove off with it and bought himself a mansion or something. It's one of his staff members who's no longer there who used the golf cart. Now, there are personalities involved. There are people who want to have their day to talk about it. And there's a lawsuit that has allegations in it. And I'm not saying I'm a really good friend of Glenn Jacobs by any means, but I've talked to him a number of times on a number of issues. And I just have a difficult time envisioning him sitting there pounding on his desk saying, I don't care what the truth is. That's a struggle. And they also point out, the county did, which may have caused some of the hard feelings here, that Paul White, the fellow who filed it, he never reported any of this stuff to anybody about being forced or coerced or lied to. And they listed it: law enforcement, Knox County's internal or external auditors, the Knox County Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline, the Comptroller's Office, as required by law. That was in the Sentinel story. None of those, he never contacted any of these, according to the county's release. So he said he did this, he said I didn't do this, and he did that. And everybody can pick sides according to who they like or if they care about this.
Courtney?
So then why not have your day in court? The reason why cases like this, like lawsuits, settle is because one party doesn't want to air dirty laundry in public. And my guess is that the county made a values assessment or judgment, risk assessment, and said, we'd rather settle this than have all the dirty laundry come out publicly in a court. And so they chose to settle it. There were some other really weird allegations in there too, that the mayor sent county staff to his home so that they could get a snake or some sort of other varmint out of the house that the wife was talking about. And what makes that really curious is that apparently his wife had posted about this on Facebook, but then deleted the Facebook post. And, if you use social media, if you're 40 years and under, you know that people don't delete social media posts unless there's something wrong. Nobody is just like, oh, well, this isn't a thing anymore, so I'm going to delete it. People delete posts when they know that they've done something wrong or it's going to get them in trouble.
Real quick, as Craig has pointed out a number of times, cities, states, counties settle lawsuits to get it off the books, get it out of the way.
You don't want to air your dirty laundry in public
for a protracted lawsuit with all the expense. We've talked about that many times.
Well, since we're
talking about what also makes
maybe
this
we
really
should do settlements.
What also makes this really interesting is that this wasn't just a lawsuit. The state comptroller's office actually came in and investigated Golf Cart Gate. So
and they did, and they found that Bruce Haar was guilty of an infraction, and he was fired.
Brian
So,
here.
you know, I don't know that they found any other.
Well, I don't know if that
that
document's been made, if the comptroller's report has been made public. It's just, this whole thing is weird, and it creates more questions than it does answers.
Particularly from the mayor's political opponent.
It does,
And
George.
if he's
I
running
mean,
for
it's just,
governor,
the whole
he'll
thing
have
is
a lot more
weird.
political opponents.
Oh, if he runs for governor, this won't be a blip on the radar.
Oh,
The
come on,
sad
George.
thing is,
I can
the
see
sad thing is
the
George is
political
right.
ad
Nobody will
with
care.
Jacobs on a golf cart already.
Yeah, there we go. Let's just move on to the National Defense Authorization Act. Just Marsha Blackburn was kind of spearheading this, trying to get rid of that mandate for the COVID vaccine for members of the military. It appears that it's going to be taken out and that they're going to move forward. Since it's a health-related issue, George, I'll start with you.
Is that because I was in the Army, or are you going to Craig because it's health?
Craig, I meant Craig.
Okay.
That's my mistake. I'm trying to edit that out, but it would probably start with you.
Well, I have right here. If you can see it, Army shots.
Yes.
It's 2 pages of vaccinations that a recruit has to take when they come into the Army. And I think the key to it is we want to keep you healthy because we live in close living quarters and other factors. And I think that in the end, the COVID-19 shot would keep people healthy.
Well, having been in the Army and gotten a lot of shots, I know that they can tell you to do that. But I also know right now the United States military is in a desperate situation. The Army missed its last year's recruiting goal by 25%. And other services are having a terrible time recruiting the number of new soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that they need. And as a result, down the road, not too far distant future, this is going to be a desperate national security situation. And they kicked out thousands of guys for not getting the COVID vaccine. Now, I wouldn't have wanted to get it. When I got it, I took all these other vaccines. It wasn't a big problem, but I didn't know this at the time, but if they'd had COVID vaccine then and I'd have gotten it, it would have laid me up for 4 months, 5 months. So people are nervous about this stuff. There are more reactions to the COVID vaccine than there are to traditional, typical vaccines. And the military is actually saying they may bring people who were thrown out back in because their manpower situation is that desperate. And by the way, you notice what we never hear when 100,000 people are crammed together in a football stadium for hours at a time? We never hear the word COVID anymore, anywhere. And so I think it's trying to justify the vaccination for these for soldiers, et cetera. But it may not. Yeah, Joe Biden himself said that the pandemic's over.
Courtney?
I don't know if requiring one additional vaccine when there are pages of other vaccines that are required to enter the military is going to solve the problems with recruiting Americans for the military. The military is facing much steeper issues, including issues related to women in the military, sexual harassment. And I think those kinds of issues that freeze out an entire gender of people from taking a serious look at the military. I think those issues are bigger than adding one more vaccination on 2 pages of vaccinations that are already required.
Well, Courtney, if you're going to make those points, then I'm going to say let's throw wokeism in too. Let's throw the fact that the military has been concentrating.
Are you equating wokeism with women getting raped and sexually assaulted in the military?
So are you accusing all military members
I asked you
of
a
being
question.
rapists?
I asked you a question. Answer it.
No.
Why?
Are you saying that women
George, I
in
asked
the
you a
military
question.
are in daily danger of being raped by their colleagues?
A question. Answer it.
No, Courtney, that's a ridiculous
This is not a
question.
one-way street. If I ask you a question, you can answer it. I'm not just sitting here answering your question.
Our alarms are going off.
I'll say that the recruiting problem has to do with more with economics than the COVID-19 vaccination.
No, COVID is just a small part.
A very
it is
small
a big part of the people who were thrown out of the military.
Yeah, and it's true. There are a lot of people that are gone.
A lot of those were reservists that we'll need.
No, Craig, there were thousands of active duty members thrown out.
Well, we'll see how that all washes out. Now, apparently, they're not going to require, but yeah, we'll see how it goes with the people who are in the military.
We'll find out whether recruiting improves.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I want to thank our political pundits for an energetic discussion today, and we want to thank you for watching this episode of Tennessee This Week. We'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.